Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought that I would review this short little video by that of the boxing channel named Boxing Ego, because I thought that this would kind of be a little bit of a talk that's, a video that I've been meaning to kind of publish for a while about that of Mr. Saul Canelo Alvarez. And of course, for Mr. Saul Canelo Alvarez, he's at a very interesting point in his career. I believe he's 32 years old, probably going to turn 33 this year, if I remember correctly. And certain people are debating whether he's still in his prime form or whether he is weakening, whether he is waning as a prime level fighter. In my personal opinion, in the John Ryder fight, I did not see the same fighter that I had seen in the Caleb Plant or Danny Jacob or Billy Joe Saunders fights. I did not see the same fighter, or even in the Gennady Golovkin rematch, I did not see the same fighter. I've seen a fighter that looks more lethargic. I've seen a fighter that gassed out even a little bit more than what he did prior. I've seen a fighter that got hit a lot more in that fight. Now, who knows? Maybe John Ryder was just a little bit more of a tough customer than what we know. Or maybe Canelo Alvarez, maybe he's going to pull out even more of an impressive performance a little bit later on. We don't know. But Canelo Alvarez, of course, his options are already pretty much wide open because of the class of level fighter that he has proved himself to be, and of course the star recognition. And right now, I would still say that he is the main face of boxing, but it's slowly waning if Canelo Alvarez once again does not prove himself to get back in that ring and beat some of the bigger name opponents. Well, of course, some of the recent candidates that Canelo Alvarez has talked about fighting, it is very particularly interesting. I predicted Canelo Alvarez to try and rematch that of Dimitri Bivol, but it seems possible that that fight may not happen. I'm not necessarily sure why that is. If I had to guess, Dimitri Bivol does not sound interested with that fight happening at light heavyweight whatsoever. He sounds more interested with it happening at 168 pounds, and that's his business. I understand. But at the end of the day, he is not the A side. And I just don't see Canelo Alvarez having the fight at 168 pounds, because what benefit would that really give Canelo Alvarez? If he ends up winning that fight, the boxing world is pretty much going to say, yeah, you beat Dimitri Bivol, but you beat him at a lower weight class where he was never really at before in terms of a championship caliber fighter. You pretty much drained him. And if he loses that fight, it's going to look even that much more worse, which is a possibility because Dimitri Bivol is a very dangerous fighter. He's a very intelligent, a very powerful, a very dangerous all-around fighter, so anything is always possible. So it's going to look even worse if he possibly loses there. So I think Canelo Alvarez's mindset is that either it happens at 175 or it's not going to happen at all. And I could be wrong. Maybe Canelo just doesn't want the rematch. But a couple of the more recent candidates that Canelo Alvarez has alleged been fighting or thought about fighting would be that of either Badu Jack, who I believe is the most recent WBC Cruiserweight champion, who beat Olunga Makabu at the Cruiserweight division. Ironically, the fighter that Canelo Alvarez was going to fight formerly when it came down to it. And that, of course, of Jermall Charlo, who's kind of been in the talks for a couple of years, but for whatever reason, the fight has not really come to fruition. Now, of course, the LDBC and new media would allege that Canelo was avoiding Charlo. Actually, I don't think that that's true. I think that Canelo at one point in time sent him a contract, and I think Charlo actually turned it down. So I don't think that that's actually the correct information. But anyways, Boxing Eagle's going to talk about it. I thought that I would talk about it as well. Let's tune in because it is going to be very interesting to see where Canelo goes from here.
Canelo Alvarez, payday. You want payday? I know that. May fight Lions only. Keep running your mouth, Jermall Charlo. I'm gonna talk about it in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now I'm back with a spoiler alert. This is not the full-fledged video. I will be making a more in-depth, detailed, giving you more of my thoughts video. So it's up to you to subscribe to the channel. Just want to break the news. Canelo could fight Jermall Charlo at 168 pounds. ESPN Knockout is reporting. It's good.
I'll say this about Canelo Alvarez really quickly. It really depends on where he plans to go in his next direction, because he can pretty much fight Jermall Charlo at any time. If he's maybe trying to fight a fighter in terms of preparation for David Benavidez, let's just say that he's potentially doing that, the option that might be better would be to go for that of Badou Jack, because Dimitri Bivol just might be a little bit too much risk, especially if he only wants to fight at 168 pounds. So if that fight's not going to happen at 175 pounds, I just don't see Canelo Alvarez really taking it, because what would really be beneficial to him if that fight is going to happen at 165 pounds? There's really nothing, or excuse me, 168 pounds. There's really nothing beneficial, I think, in terms of that image for that of Canelo Alvarez. I just don't see him doing that. Now, in terms of Badou Jack, and of course we know David Benavidez, that quote-unquote Mexican monster, that he is right there approaching Canelo Alvarez very fast and speeding up with a bullet. So is it possible that Canelo Alvarez maybe wants to fight Badou Jack, maybe see, how his cards play out? If he does very well against Badou Jack, then he fights David Benavidez. If he doesn't do very well, and if he loses the fight, well, at least he accomplished history, and then maybe he would retire after that, and he would say, I'm not the same fighter anymore, and I don't want to face David Benavidez, a dude that has been very decently dangerous in the 168-pound weight division. Who knows? We'll see what happens. And like I said, I've never really alleged that Canelo Alvarez has ever really avoided anybody, because Canelo has always shown me in the past that he's willing to fight pretty much any type of style that is out there. He's fought a lot of the great fighters of his generation or of his certain weight classes. Yes, the Jermall Charlo nor Demetrius Andrade fights, those never happened. But actually, you cannot always blame Canelo Alvarez on some of those fights not happening. Now, maybe the Andrade fight, maybe to a degree, but there's also been some stupid-ass moves that Demetrius Andrade has made in his career. And if you're someone like a Canelo Alvarez or even a lot of the other fighters, why would you even want to fight Demetrius Andrade? Because is he really even worth fighting for the amount of risk that he truly is? He has no big following whatsoever. He's never fought a champion when it comes down to it. And at the end of the day, it's like, what fan base does he really have? If Canelo Alvarez, wants to get a big fight, he can fight either Jermall Charlo or David Benavidez, earn way, way more, and potentially win those fights. What is really the main reason of fighting Demetrius Andrade when he is pretty much too much risk for the reward? And of course, that is looked at as unfair by some people, but that's just the way the boxing world is. That's in every weight division and a multitude of fighters. They do that. That's why Erislandy Lara, that's why Jermall Charlo, a lot of the times they did not get big fights either, because they're just looked at too much risk for too little reward. But anyways, like I said, we'll see what ends up happening here. It's going to be very interesting, because if Canelo Alvarez does beat that of Badou Jack, let's just say, he can say then he's a 5-weight division champion. And if he does very well in that fight, I would easily probably see him taking the David Benavidez fight or being confident enough. But if he does not win that fight or looks very poor, Canelo Alvarez just might decide to call it a day and say, you know what, I pretty much had enough. I'm aging a little bit as a fighter. I pretty much passed the torch on to David Benavidez. So like I said, we'll see.
Fight. I have some beefs which I'll explore in the deep dive video on the good and the bad. I give you guys the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm the best in the business. So overall, it's a good fight, but there are some gripes that I have with it, some nitpicks. But that's the latest news.
Of course you have some gripes with it, because you never really believed that Jermall Charlo was going to beat Canelo Alvarez in the first place. And this is the main problem that I really have with a lot of these LDBC and new media analyses. Don't get me wrong, it's great that they have their own channel and their own following. That's a great thing. But at the end of the day, a big part of the reason why I like to review their videos is to show their true machinations, is to show their true workings. They don't really give a shit if the Canelo Alvarez versus Jermall Charlo fight happens, because all they're going to say is that Jermall Charlo, he's been on a long layoff, or, this is his first time moving up to 168 pounds. Who gives a shit? Jermall Charlo, at the end of the day, has a longer reach. He's like 6'1" over that of Canelo Alvarez. When it comes down to it, you guys have been alleging for the longest time that Jermall Charlo is one of the slick black fighters that would defeat Canelo Alvarez. You're supposed to be that great and move up one weight division and beat Canelo Alvarez. It's not like Canelo Alvarez is a natural 168-pounder anyway. So once again, these guys, it's no offense, but even if you were going to allege that Canelo was avoiding Jermall Charlo, which I've never personally agreed in the several years that I've been hearing it, but when it comes down to it, all in all, if you were going to allege that, I would have a lot more respect for your analyzation if you were consistent. But you can tell that a lot of these guys, they're just so full of shit because once again, and I've already done this a couple times, Boxing Ego one day will say, oh, well, why isn't Canelo fighting Jermall Charlo, blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as the fight may potentially happen, oh, well, he's moving up to 168 pounds for the first time and all sort of bullshit. Like, dude, he's allegedly a great fighter. You're supposed to be able to move up one weight division when basically you've been a natural 160 pounder for pretty much your whole entire career. You know, you're supposed to be able to do that and potentially win. It really shows you that these guys, they never truly believed that Jermall Charlo was ever going to beat Canelo Alvarez in the first place. Not Dante, not Aki, not Boxing Ego, none of these guys, because they see the exact same thing that I see. Jermall Charlo is dog food for Canelo Alvarez. That's pretty much all he is. He's a big name and he's dog food.
Canelo Alvarez could face Jermall Charlo.
The only way that Jermall Charlo would ever beat Canelo Alvarez is if Canelo is even a worse version of what he was in the last fight, in the John Ryder fight, and Jermall Charlo has literally pulled out a performance that I've never ever seen from him before. That would be the only way that Jermall Charlo beats Canelo Alvarez. In my view, he's just way too hittable. He's way too stiff. I think that he's a very good counterpuncher, but I think he relies on his counterpunching way too often. Like I said, what Jermall Charlo really reminds me of is a bigger version of Danny Garcia. But we'll see.
Jermall Charlo's undefeated. Canelo has 2 losses. Floyd Mayweather and Dimitri Bivol arguably has more if you include close fights like Lada or Triple G. Yeah, no, guys, hey, Max, it's big drama, guys, this fight is not Kazakhstan. Nonetheless, as it sits on his record, he has 2 losses. Canelo, I mean, I think he looks bad, to be honest. Charlo's been on.
Isn't it interesting how Boxing Ego always claims that Canelo Alvarez or Teofimo Lopez or Vasily Lomachenko, how they could potentially have more losses, but he never says this with Devin Haney or any of the other fighters that, let's be real, have melanin. Let's be real. And don't get me wrong, I think it's great to have a channel where you support black fighters. That's a great thing. But at the end of the day, don't sit here and, pee on my leg and tell me that it's raining. Don't try to bullshit me and tell me all this shit about, oh, we're here, to tell the truth and, all this stuff. But, get the fuck out of here. All you are is a pro-blackity black version of old media. That's really all you are. All right?
A long layoff. And Dimitri Bivol, David Benavidez, those are the names. Like, first of all, you lost to Bivol, so that's kind of common sense why you would want to avenge that. As far as David Benavidez.
Well, Ego, what really the fuck? What do you want for Canelo Alvarez with Dimitri Bivol? I have no problem with someone saying that Canelo Alvarez, that he should rematch Dimitri Bivol. But like I said, this is how I know that this dude is just a hater of Canelo Alvarez. Because this dude doesn't really know what the hell he wants. Like I said, someone who actually has constructive criticism, they'll pretty much just be in the background and, pretty much just there. And whatever happens is whatever happens. They pretty much just go with the flow because they don't have any deeper machinations. A hater will never be consistent. The standards always change. So one day Boxing Ego is basically saying that, oh, well, Canelo Alvarez, he should fight Dimitri Bivol at 168 pounds, overall because he's not going to win at 175. And then the next day he says, oh, well, Canelo Alvarez, the fight needs to happen at 175 because why would you bring him down there? It's like, dude, what are you happy with? And then with Jermall Charlo, of course, we've heard it before. Oh, he needs to fight, the undefeated black fighters like Jermall Charlo and Andrade. Then when Charlo is about to potentially happen, oh, well, it's his first fight at 168. It's like, dude, what do you want? It's like a woman overall that doesn't know what the fuck she wants and drives everyone crazy. It's like, what do you want from him?
Benavidez, he's the guy at 168 already, has fights at 168, just beat a mutual opponent in Caleb Plant and kind of brutalized him in the later rounds. That's the fight everyone's been asking for. This is still a big fight, but again, Charlo doesn't have experience at 168, and he's coming off a personal issue.
Right, but he's the same dude. He's the same slick black fighter that you guys have been claiming that would have a very decent chance over Canelo Alvarez. So what do you really want from Canelo?
Choose a long layoff, which, again, I'll explore in the deep dive video. So let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Canelo, if he fights against Charlo, it'll definitely sell and definitely do good business. Let me know who you would pick. At the end of the day, Canelo didn't look great in his last fight with John Ryder. And
I agree, he didn't look great. He looked like an aged fighter. And of course, he's 32 years old, I believe, turning 33. But once again, not every fighter ages the same.
There were even talks of him fighting Badu Jack which to me, it makes no sense. If Canelo's fans and Canelo crying about losing to Bivol, saying Bivol's too big, he's not even the biggest light heavyweight. You got guys like Joe Smith Jr. that are bigger than Bivol. So if his fans were crying when Bivol beat him and dominated and kicked him from pillar to post, then why would Canelo even be entertaining a cruiserweight fight? I mean, this is several divisions higher. Makes absolute.
I'll say this once again, I am going to be very interested to see where Canelo Alvarez goes from here. Because once again, if I had to guess what Canelo Alvarez's plans are right now, if he is facing Badou Jack in the next fight, if I had to guess where Canelo Alvarez's mindset is, he's pretty much going to say, well, I can pretty much fight for history, potentially win in a fifth weight class, a weight class that I really have no business winning a title in. I could potentially win against Badou Jack. If I am very good, if I think that I'm comfortable enough, then I'll fight David Benavidez, add another feather in my cap. It'll be great practice for me anyway because Badou Jack, he's a very experienced fighter and he's very heavy set. He's going to be around the same size as that of David Benavidez and it's going to be a cruiserweight, so I have an opportunity at history. Or if I, feel that I'm not too great after that fight or if I end up losing that fight, I can pretty much call it a day. And that way I don't have to fight David Benavidez when I feel that I'm not the same fighter that I once was. So like I said, we'll end up seeing what ends up happening with that. If I had to guess, that more than likely is where Canelo Alvarez's mindset is if he does truly plan to face out of Badou Jack. If he does plan to face out of Jermall Charlo, it's going to even be more interesting where he goes from there because I'm not really sure where he is going to go from there. Will he potentially rematch Dimitri Bivol? We'll see. Maybe he'll even be worth a little bit more money then because that Jermall Charlo fight, Canelo should more than likely dominate that fight, at least if he's any, good still when it comes down to it, and then of course he may even be worth a little bit more money or that fight may be worth a little bit more. So maybe Bivol would be willing to take it. Maybe he fights David Benavidez next. Who knows? I'm not really sure. That's all I'm saying. This Canelo Alvarez direction is going to be very interesting.
No sense. That's like somebody being afraid of heights and you want to watch the fireworks from your rooftop and they're too afraid because they're afraid of heights. They don't want to get on the roof. They're too afraid of it. But then they're willing to go to Dubai. That's like going to Dubai and going to the Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building in the world. Like, it doesn't make sense. You're afraid to go on a common, one-story rooftop, but you're going to go to Dubai and go to the Burj Khalifa. Like, it doesn't make sense. And that's the thing with Canelo. If you're crying over light heavyweight and light heavyweight fighters being too big, what is this talk about cruiserweight and fighting Usyk and all this Makbouk Air and all this other dumb stuff? Let me know what you guys think. I'll have a more detailed video where I really get off. Subscribe to the channel for that. Canelo versus Charlo could be a thing. Canelo met up with Al Heyman in Cleveland. We'll see how it goes. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know, do you hate it? Do you love it? And I'm out.
I keep hearing.
But anyways, that's pretty much about it. Anyways, just to answer the question, do I hate it? Do I love it about either one of those fights? I don't really hate either one of those fights. I think that either one could be very interesting events, the Jermall Charlo fight especially. We know that Ego and a lot of these LDBC boys, they're not going to be happy whatever way Canelo Alvarez fights Jermall Charlo because they know deep down Jermall Charlo is not on Canelo Alvarez's level, at least if Canelo is going to show up in very decent form. But anyways, when it comes down to it, as for the Badou Jack fight, that is a very potentially interesting matchup. That'd be very interesting. And if Canelo Alvarez were to win that fight, if he were able to show out in that fight, that might gain him enough confidence to face that of David Benavidez at this point in time in his career. And once again, that's not me really saying that he's avoiding David Benavidez by any means, but I think that he realizes that David Benavidez is probably the biggest challenge, and that if he was going to face that of David Benavidez, he would have to be in better form than what he is in his last fight. So we'll see. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see where this goes. That's about it. I'll talk to you all later.